You're watching BBC News and good timing because that report ends as the plane just comes to a standstill carrying King Charles and Queen Camilla. You see the flags just waving from the cockpit, but in a moment or two you'll see the stairs go up a side. There we are, ready to start this state visit in Italy. And watching is Daniela Relf, our senior royal correspondent. And Daniela, we're going to stay on these pictures, but as you come into the conversation, tell us a little more then about this state visit.
Yes, Matthew. So this is a 4-day state visit that the King and Queen are about to embark on in Italy. It starts in Rome, then it moves north to Ravenna near Bologna. When they disembark that aircraft, which we will see shortly, they will be greeted by a number of Italian dignitaries, by the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, and by the UK Ambassador to Italy, Lord Llewellyn, Ed Llewellyn. And earlier today, we had a chance to have a chat to Ed Llewellyn. He talked about the importance of this visit in terms of cementing ties between the UK and Italy, particularly around areas like defence. He said it was a meaningful and broad visit that was going to be carried out here in Italy. He also talked about the power of soft diplomacy that we will see played out over the next 4 days, saying its value was priceless and intangible. So a flavour from the ambassador here about how important he views this visit to be strategically around the relationship between Italy and the UK. And it is interesting thinking about the King's reign, actually, that since he took to the throne, he has now done state visits to France, to Germany and to Italy, all of them reinforcing relationships with these major powers in Europe. And it's definitely been something of a reset post-Brexit that the King has been able to play a part in as part of the soft diplomacy that the royal family can wield. Now, over the next 4 days, there are some key elements to the visit. The King and Queen will come here where I am at the moment, the Colosseum. They will also meet the President and the Prime Minister of Italy. There will be a glitzy state banquet on one evening, and that evening on Wednesday will be the day that Charles and Camilla, the King and Queen, celebrate their 20th anniversary. They will do that here in Rome, so there'll be some mention of that later in the week. And then when they move to Ravenna, that will be more of a focus on culture, on literacy, on remembrance and on Italian food. I should also say that the King will become the first British monarch to address a joint session of the Italian Parliament when he's here, and we are told he will deliver some of that speech in Italian.
Daniela, as you're talking to us, we were seeing the cameraman just get a little closer to the plane. We have a very tight shot now as we wait for the door to open. It was very interesting what you were saying there about the agenda. Originally, when this trip was planned, would the intention have been to have also seen the Pope? Daniela, I don't know if you can still hear me, but in terms of the original itinerary, would the plan have been to meet with Pope Francis? No, we seem to have lost that line to Daniela Relf there at the Colosseum. Apologies for that, but let's stay with these live pictures. You can see the Foreign Secretary David Lammy just at the base of the stairs. Very interesting what Daniela was saying a moment or two ago, because she was talking about how the British ambassador, she had spoken to him, talking about the importance of soft diplomacy, and that, of course, weaved into everything the King and Queen will be doing, and was talking about the 2 full days in Rome that they have, first of all, before venturing further afield. And there you see the camera just tilting up. We're still waiting to see King Charles and Queen Camilla emerge from that flight. And then, as Daniela was telling us, we have that joint address of the session of the Italian Parliament, and that'll be really, really interesting in terms of some of the issues that all capitals are currently having to grapple with. One thinks of tariffs, one thinks of migration. It'll be interesting to see how King Charles' words whatever he decides to say to the Italian Parliament, as the camera just swings around, and you can see the very long convoy all in place. So I don't think it's going to be that long till we see that door actually open. But the start of this state visit, and of course we had that update only last week in terms of King Charles's health, but he has made no change to this scheduled trip to Italy. I was mentioning there and asking Daniela Ralph, and of course the Pope with his long stay in hospital, that of course ruling out any sort of meeting between the King and Queen and Pope Francis. But there we see just the entourage waiting for the King and Queen as they prepare to start this state visit. We hope to talk to Daniela again, Daniela Ralph, our senior royal correspondent. She's there at the Colosseum. We lost the line to her, but just trying to re-establish that. But she will be following the King and Queen throughout the next 4 days, as we see just a little bit of further movement. And Daniela talking about the previous visits in recent months and weeks by King Charles and Queen Camilla, and often the themes in these visits repeated in the various capitals. And I can see Daniela just about to rejoin us. Daniela, apologies, we lost the line to you. You're there at the Colosseum, one of the places that the King and Queen will actually visit in this trip, and the door slides open. So I'm just going to pause before I ask you the question. Daniela, when I was trying to ask the question before the line dropped out, I was saying that I assume that prior to the Pope's illness, a meeting with Pope Francis might have been on the agenda, and there they are as they emerge.
Yes, that's right. As they emerge from that aircraft, they've landed in Rome. What they'll have there, Matthew, now over the next few minutes is a ceremonial welcome to Italy. A guard of honour will form. We will hear military bands playing the national anthems of both the UK and of Italy. So a full ceremonial welcome that we are about to see for the King and Queen in Italy. Yes, and as you say, this was actually supposed to be a double-headed state visit. So a state visit to Italy itself and a state visit to the Vatican, to the Holy See. But with the Pope's poor health, it was decided to take those elements, the Vatican elements, out of this visit. So that included an audience with the Pope and a visit to the Sistine Chapel. Now, there has been a bit of speculation about now the Pope seems to be looking a little better. Of course, we saw him here in Rome yesterday. Is there any chance that that element of the visit, an audience between the King and the Pope, could be reinstated in some way? That's not clear at the moment. There are no plans, we are told, right now. But I suspect there will be some work going on behind the scenes to see if anything like that, even if it was something done in private, perhaps we just see a photograph, would be possible over the days ahead.
And Delia, as we were waiting to see these pictures as they start this state visit, I was making the point that it's only a week or so since we had that update in terms of the King's health, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And it's actually an important part, Matthew, of these kind of visits, a personal element, because what a state visit does give you is a chance to see the King and the Queen up close on consecutive days, carrying out engagement after engagement after engagement. I think they have about 19, 20 engagements in all here in Italy over the next 4 days. So in many ways, it's a chance to kind of see how the King is doing, to be honest. He had that blip, that bump in the road, as Buckingham Palace called it last week, when he had that bad reaction, those side effects to part of his cancer treatment. But it was a reminder, of course, of his vulnerability, that he is a man in his late 70s. He has had a cancer diagnosis. His treatment for cancer has now been going on for over a year. So it was a reminder of all of those elements. And, you know, that will, of course, to some make this trip, these kind of visits, a little bit more grueling and difficult for him. But there hasn't been much changed or shifted to accommodate the fact that the King hasn't been too well. It's a full programme of events, a full schedule from morning to evening on some days. But what was interesting, the last official state visit that the King and Queen did was to Australia and Samoa back in October. And at the end of that, those working with the King and his private office were very clear about how he felt about doing these kind of tours. They said that he was really energised by these overseas visits, that he found that they enhanced his mind, body and spirit, as they put it, and actually made him feel better. So Buckingham Palace will be hoping that this trip to Italy will deliver that for him this week.
Just to find